All right, let's get to the main event. The reason we're all here is to hear from Kintan Brahmbhatt. He is at Amazon. He's a director of product management and technical program management for Amazon Music. Before that at Amazon, he worked on IMDb Everywhere. We actually met at the Industry Product Conference in Cleveland last September and hit it off, and I really enjoyed his talk. And he's actually going to be giving us a slightly longer version here, which is great. It's a slightly different talk. And he's at Kintan on Twitter. That's also on the whiteboard. So if he says something you really like, or you see a slide that he likes, take a picture and tweet it with that, and throw on the Lean Product Meetup so you can win one of these things. But he's going to share with us his thoughts on customer obsession, which is one of Jeff Bezos' core properties, beliefs that he has, values. So without that, let's give Kintan a warm welcome here.
Thank you. Yes. So for those of you whom I haven't met, I actually see a lot of familiar faces here, so which is very good to reconnect with some of you. For those of you whom I haven't met yet, I'm Kintan. I'm responsible for product and TPM teams for music worldwide at Amazon. And music, how many of you are familiar with what music is at Amazon? So there are a few brands you may be aware of. We have a membership program called Prime. If you're a Prime member, there's Prime Music. So you get a subscription to an on-demand streaming service with your Prime membership. We have a on-demand service, Music Unlimited. And how many of you are familiar with Echo, Alexa, Amazon voice speaker? Awesome. So I think a lot of our customers get familiar with our product, with our music service through Echo for the first time. So thank you all for those of you who raised hands. For those of you who did not raise hands, life's too short to not try Amazon Music. So I see a lot of product folks here, a lot of builders. I'm myself an engineer and a product builder for the most part. And I'm going to talk about customer obsession, but the intent is I've been very fortunate. I've been at Amazon for about 9 years now, so I've been very fortunate to have had the opportunity to closely observe the decision-making process in building some of Amazon's largest products or biggest products, whether it's some of the devices that we've built, some of the software products we've built, services, and so on. And what I've done is, for you today, I've analyzed the decision-making process or the key decisions, the anecdotes, both at the highest level as well as at the pixel level in some cases, and extracted out thinking points, things that you can take with yourself to help inform your product decisions. As they say, mileage may vary and will definitely vary. I will, at times, I'll definitely sound very preachy. That's not my intent. My earnest intent is to share some of the things that have worked for us at Amazon. And they may or may not work in your scenario. Product building is a very contextual task, as we all know. So please take it for what it's worth, and hopefully at the very least, you'll get a different perspective on how certain teams have approached building products. Coincidentally, but my specialty has been to take very commoditized scenarios that have been use cases. So we haven't really invented a lot of new use cases, but taken existing user behavior, existing use cases that have been around for ages, for decades, watching TV or watching a video online, listening to music. And we've reimagined, we've really closely observed customers, and Amazon does that a lot, shopping things, buying things online. That's been around for quite some time as well. We've observed customer behavior and reimagined that experience based on the vantage point that Amazon and as well as the technology has. And I'll walk through a few examples. Is there anything in particular you'd like me to cover? I have some prepared remarks, but just shout it out. We'll have folks with mics. So if you have a question, just raise the hands. We don't need to wait till the end. My personal goal is to make this a very informative session for my customers, who are you, for the next hour or so. So I'll do my best. I'll do everything that's Kintanly possible to be customer obsessed for this hour. And so please feel free to ask questions and so on. So before we start, as product builders, what's the most important task of a product creator or product builder? Just shout out some names. Or what do you think product managers are paid to do? Sit around. Yes, they like sitting. Us product people like to sit. What else? Understand the problem, listen to customers, voice of the customers, empathize with the customers, make sure the product is easy to use, launch the product. They're all great things. I think nobody said talk. What I've seen in my career is a lot of times product managers talk all the time. I as a product manager, talked quite a bit. I think our job as a product manager is to talk, but we get paid to listen. And listen to ourselves, as we are building the product, listen to the customers, listen to partners, listen to stakeholders, listen to the feedback that's coming in through usage of your products, whether it's manifesting itself in form of a metric that you're tracking, or a certain goal that you're tracking, or a tweet from a customer, or an inbound email, or a call to customer service, depending on the product you're building, and so on. So let's keep that in mind. If we don't get anything out of the next hour or so, this is one thing. That's why I put it as the first set of slides. Now, for me to be able to use some examples and anecdotes, it's important for us to understand what the context is of Amazon Music. Now, Amazon's been around for about 20 years, little over 20 years, I'd say. It started as a bookstore. The next thing after books that Amazon started selling were CDs and DVDs. So I'm going to go about this. So CDs, 98 is when we started selling CDs. So we've been selling music for quite some time. Over the last 2 decades, now we launched a brand called Amazon MP3, which was DRM-free digital music. There was iTunes, pay 99 cents, you get a song. We launched Cloud Player, which was the first brand of our mobile apps and desktop apps, followed by a feature called Autorip. Who here is familiar with Autorip? Oh, great. We'll talk about that later. Prime Music, we talked about it, and Music Unlimited. I joined around 2013 on music, so last 5 years is what I've been focusing on at music for Amazon, and most of my work has been on the streaming. So Amazon was selling music. A lot of my work has been to help transition Amazon into streaming music. So we'll use this was important to get out so that we understand the context of some of the examples I'll be using. Sounds good? One of the few places where you can buy physical digital music as well as stream music worldwide. So the key here is for customer obsession. So everyone wants to be customer obsessed. Everyone wants to take data from the customers, take insights from the customers, and build the right products. What does that really mean? Like what does it mean to be really customer obsessed? And it's all about simplifying existing scenarios, or reimagining existing scenarios by adding some simplification and inventing new ones. It's as simple as that. And what does simplification mean? What does invention mean? We'll go through a few anecdotes and go through that. Sounds good? How are you doing so far? Very good. All right, so simplification, essentially, in my opinion, if you were to abstract the heck out of it, it's about reducing friction. You seek out, the key is that if you see friction, the obvious friction, every product manager or every designer, every developer, every builder tries to eliminate friction. The challenge is to seek out friction that's not obvious. And that's the main difference between good products and great products, I'd say, where how do you seek out friction that's not outright obvious to you? And to give an example, so we have a mobile app, for instance, on iOS. It's an app where you get streaming services. The music you purchased is available there as a Prime member. You get stations and playlists, and you can add songs to your library, similar to other streaming services that you may have heard or used. A most commonly requested feature in a streaming music service is that, hey, I want to be able to take my songs offline. So if I'm in a flight somewhere, I can listen to the music. If I'm going on a hike somewhere where there is no connection, I can listen to the music. Hey, I don't want to pay extra for data, so I can listen to music on an ongoing basis, and so on. So we said, yeah, let's allow customers to download music. Straightforward. Everyone in the world allows customers to download music. It was not really innovative per se. But we keenly observed how the usage patterns evolved when customers listen, once they downloaded music as well as once they listened to the music that was downloaded. So we'll look at the metrics, we'll go talk to customers, observe them, say, hey, what they are doing, what's their usage pattern for these downloaded playlists or so on. And every customer I talked to, actually, they were always dissatisfied, and when the dissatisfaction got manifested in very simple terms that, hey, I hate that Britney Spears playlist, but I have to listen to it every time I go on a flight, because that's the only one I've downloaded. I hate that same song over and over again because I must have heard to those same set of 10 songs for last several flights I've taken or last several hikes that I've taken. My kids hate it when they have to listen to that song one more time because I forgot to download it. There's this inherent friction that, hey, before you hop on the flight, before you go on that hike, you have to remember there's a mental cognitive load. You have to remember that, hey, you might want to swap that playlist that you've already downloaded. Then once you know that that's a problem, it's a very simple thing to fix. Because we are anyways taking customers' listening data, listening patterns and behavior to recommend them songs. And the recommendations are good, and we know they are good because customers end up listening to those recommendations. So to address that friction point, we said, hey, why don't we just automatically download that music for customers? It's very straightforward, and I'm actually surprised by none of the other music apps does it, even still yet, because every customer had some kind of frustration with offline experience. They said that, hey, I can download it. I know I can download it. I need to remember to do it. And that's what I mean by seeking out friction where it may not be as obvious. It's one thing to have the ability to download. It's one thing to have ability to download at various bit rates, so it doesn't take enough space in your computer or your mobile phone and so on. Another thing to anticipate what's the customer's real intent and why to download. So we have this feature called, we call it offline recs, offline recommendations. Based on your listening history, this is an iPhone app. As soon as when you go to offline mode, you'll have playlists waiting for you. You'll have 8 to 9 hours of music waiting for you. And this is music individually personalized for every customer. So this is less about an advertisement for Amazon Music. It's important to understand that the most common feature set within the music streaming business can be further innovated here. And I'm sure this can be further innovated as well as we dive deeper into customers. Does this make sense? Seeking out friction that's not so obvious. Question? Is there a mic nearby, or I can repeat it? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, where do you find this friction? How do you look for it?
You observe customers. The question was, how do you find friction? It's not by asking, just observing and listening in to see, how. Just say, hey, when you talk to a customer, for instance, say, what do you like about it? What do you not like about it? To get the basics out of it, and then say, why don't you just download a few playlists that you like and let's go on a ride. Let's just turn off Wi-Fi or turn off the data plan. Let's go to offline mode. And as soon as they turn off the data plan and we are on a ride or we are going somewhere, that's when the frustration starts coming up in this case. Yeah, I didn't mean to listen to that same song again. So it's being thoughtfully intentional about observing what the customer is intending to do, and intending to do on an ongoing basis as opposed to just on a single transaction. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, go ahead. How do you define success in this specific case? The success in this case is essentially a function of whatever metrics you are using, like how frequently, what percentage of customers who have turned this feature on are using it, how many of these customers are liking the recommendations, how many of these customers are still frustrated by the offline experience. So whatever your input and output metrics are, it varies from feature to feature. Makes sense? One more question. Go ahead.
How do you filter what to build? Because obviously, when you ask customers, and I'm a researcher, like you don't want to ask people what they want.
Yeah, you never ask what they want. But you want to ask it so that.
Yeah. A lot of different things. Like how do you filter what to build?
So the question was, how do you filter what to build? And I think my experience in research, yes, the standard standard recommendation on, the question was, how do you filter when you ask customers, they'll tell you a million things, how do you filter what to prioritize, the prioritization question. And then there was a comment in there which I'd like to expand upon was, the comment was that, hey, you don't really ask customers what they want because they don't know for a fact what they want. What I have found in user interviews, and mileage may vary, is that we always ask customers, because regardless of whether we ask or not, they do want to tell that, hey, you're talking with the product builder, let me tell them what they should do, how can they make this better. So let them talk about it, and you can take down the notes or record and so on, and you can throw it away. That's fine. But you have to let them, at least what I've found useful is you have to let them speak. And then just observe, ask them to use the product, ask them to use the feature, and then observe them in their natural habitat. There was a feature we built, I've not shown here, but there's a feature we built around how to allow customers to play recently played music. And after observing a lot of people, from a 16-year-old high school student to a executive, middle-aged executive, most often cases, we observed that they were just starting their sessions. The music sessions started by playing what they were recently playing. So we made it very easy for customers to access the recently played music. But we didn't ask. None of them said that I want to play the recently played music. We just naturally observed that they'll open the app, they'll try to go to the history, or they'll try to search for the same thing. And I asked them, hey, why did you search that? And say, hey, I was just listening to it yesterday and I liked it. So it's all about observation, is what I've seen. And obviously, as you know very well, it's a deeper craft and a science behind it. One more, and then we'll move on. Go ahead. What's your question?
After making observation, how do you prioritize, which feature to build?
Yeah, after making an observation, once you decide that you received an ocean of inputs, how do you prioritize what to build first versus later? There are multiple approaches to do. There are, depending on if you're the first in the market versus you're catching up. A very simple approach is ICE. How many of you are familiar with ICE? ICE. It's impact, ICE, impact. C stands for your confidence in this, and E is for effort. So it's a weighted average of those three, for instance. Some people like to use RICE. RICE has RICE, so reach, impact, confidence, effort. But it's a based on the inputs you have, based on what your business goals are, what your customer goals are, what the macro trends in the industry are. You want to make sure that you make the decision based on your resources. If you have 1 million developers to work on, then you can do everything. If you have 5, you'll have to pick and choose based on what's important for the business. Yeah. So how can I apply this to my product? So, okay, this worked for Amazon, so what? And I'm using this pattern of thinking points. Thinking points are just anecdotes, and they are by no means comprehensive or complete. As a product builder, I found it very useful to invest energies in thinking about how I can improve the questions I ask myself, the questions I ask the team, questions I ask the customers. So hence, I've given a couple of questions to just seed the thinking behind your product decisions. And then how do you reduce the number of steps taken? Number of steps taken to listen to a song you want to listen to while you're on a hike. Right now, it's either you cannot listen to it if you have not downloaded that specific song or a playlist, or here you just don't have to do anything. It's automatically downloaded. It automatically downloads. So you reduce the number of steps to 0. And you want to always aim to reduce the number of steps to 0. So there's just a couple of questions. The first question is very relevant. It's very hard. It's easier said than done. But really understand the deep, real intent of the customer, and see if your product or feature is addressing that or not. Customers want to access music in an offline way, in an offline manner. Yes, we know that it's a truth. Does providing that download button next to every song and every playlist, is it going to cut it or not? And you'll only find out after talking to customers. All right, let's talk about invention. Invention is best done when you map your product to customers' existing human behavior, and where you want to understand, you want to have a mental map where your product, the customer's behavior is going this way, if at all possible, at what point is your product intersecting with the customer's behavior? And is it a forced intersection, or is it just natural? And you want to try your best to make it happen. Sounds good? So for this to talk about a few of these scenarios, I need to give a quick overview of Echo. Seems like everyone's aware of this. Echo is a cloud-based, is a speaker that comes with an assistant called Alexa. It's a cloud-connected smart speaker powered by all sorts of smart software and built by very smart people. So let me put it that way. Not me. It's not that common. This slide is very important. It's not to boast how good Alexa is and so on. I think it's very good. She's very good. But it comes in my career. This is the only single time that it has happened where a product comes along that customers relate to as a member of the family, somebody they love, somebody they trust, somebody they call their best friend. That trust I think it's a golden opportunity for product builders. When you have that trust, you can actually do so many things to help the customers do more things that they didn't even think were possible. And the shift to voice is real, is massive. I can say that because I see the metrics. It's very real. It's of the same magnitude, about 7, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when touch came in mobile, in smartphones, when the touch interface came. A completely new set of apps, Google Maps with Pinch and Zoom, for instance, was a great app. They came up. I think voice we are seeing is doing something similar for home entertainment, music in particular, home automation, so on and so forth. Can do all sorts of things. Seems like everyone's familiar with what Alexa does. So can play music, can order an Uber or a Lyft, and set alarms and make lists and whatnot. Music is obviously one of the top requests. It's a speaker, so music is one of the top requests. We were launching Prime Music in 2014, June 2014, and we launched three main devices. When I say we, Amazon launched 3 devices at the time: Fire Phone, Fire TV, and Echo. And we were optimistic about all of them. Echo kind of took off at a much larger magnitude, especially when it came to music. When we started observing the customer behaviors and the patterns, phenomenally different insights came up, and I'll talk about that. Who here works on media products, videos or books or music or so on? So I'm sure you can attest to the fact that any media product, and I've studied several media companies, I've built several media products, they are at a very fundamental level, there are just 2 problems we are trying to solve as product builders. One is, as a customer, I know exactly what I want to play, watch, listen, read, and I'll type it in, and the app or the software will spit it out. And the other one is, hey, I don't know what I want to play, watch, listen, and there are recommendations. You can get a recommendation via email, or you go to the recommendations tab, or so on. Most apps, if you look at Netflix or Spotify or Hulu or any of the Amazon apps, Kindle, Amazon Video, or music, those are the primary 2. It's a very abstract level. Those are the 2 functions that any of the media apps does. It helps customers find what they want to find in as easy a manner as possible. As I started looking at the data for usage data for Alexa, new patterns emerged. The same scenarios, customers manifested those same desires, same intent in a fundamentally different way. So I'll give you a few examples. This is an Echo Tap. I use this because I can press the button, so it doesn't go on without any utterance. So I know exactly what I want to play, but I cannot describe it by name. So that's a very common scenario. I was listening. We were waiting at Phil's Coffee for while they make your coffee, you have to kind of wait. This is one of those longer wait times. And there was a song. This was 2016, late 2016. And there was a song by Adele. Adele had just released this album called 25. You guys know Adele is one of these popular singers. Album called 25. And there was a different song. There was a song called Send My Love to Your New Lover. that was playing on. I knew I was with a friend and like, hey, it's a great song. Seems like it's by Adele because I recognize the voice and it's a good song. So we talked about it and hey, have you heard Hello? Do you like Hello? Yeah, nah. And then we went home and how do I get to that song? I didn't know what the song was. So I said, hey, Alexa, play the latest single by Adele. It was as simple as that. And at that time, Alexa played Hello. But Hello was not what I heard. What I heard was Send My Love to Your New Lover. So when we dug deeper, we found out that artists, they release the album in the same order. So album has 10 songs pretty much. All 10 songs have the same release date. So when we looked at the metadata and the search index, 10 songs in the album named 25 had the same release date. But they use a different date for promoting those songs on YouTube and radio and so on. So, and there is no notion of a single promotion date. There is no database where we know what song was promoted when. So we actually invested to create a single promotions new field, a new search index to just figure out when the song was promoted. Because a lot of customers were asking that, hey, play that latest record by this artist or play that latest single by Adele. And by the time we released the feature, she had changed the song. It was no longer Send My Love to Your New Lover. It was Water Under the Bridge, I think, Water Under the Bridge. So it's a very common thing. And customers, they know exactly what song. Remember, I heard that song at Phil's. So I knew exactly what song I wanted to play. I knew it was by Adele. And I told her, hey, play that latest single by Adele. But I was frustrated when I didn't hear the song. And it's the most common problem with new songs. People don't know what the name of the song is. So they don't know how to search. And they're not going to go to their app and say, latest single by Adele latest single. They'll go to Google or YouTube and see what's trending and then try to sample it and then play it. So there's a lot of friction there. So we support that. Play the latest single by Imagine Dragons.
Next to Me by Imagine Dragons.
I know it's from the latest album. They might have changed it. When I created the slides, just don't know why. So you get the idea. You can obviously add it to a playlist. What song is this?
This is Next to Me from Evolve by Imagine Dragons.
Add it to my music.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
That's why we do live demos. Add this song to my library.
Adding Next to Me by Imagine Dragons to your music library.
You get the idea, where the intent is not just to provide the latest, to provide the new songs, but to provide what the customer really intended to do. So the most common scenario, I don't know what, I know exactly what I want, but I cannot explain it by name. Oftentimes, how many of you are local? Like, did you guys grow up in Bay Area or did you move here from somewhere? Most of us moved. I grew up in India till about I was 17, came here for my undergrad and so on and so forth. But and then I spent some time in Midwest near Chicago and then Seattle and here. One of the relationships I have with a specific city is through the local radio stations or the local music channels or the local music tastes and so on. And the first principles reason of that is that because that tells you the vibe of the city. In Chicago, when you say, hey, play what's playing in Chicago, you'll hear a certain type of music. You ask for Mumbai, you'll hear some Bollywood music and so on. So it's another simple thing. I know exactly what I want to play. I can't describe it by name. So you can just ask, hey Alexa, play something that's popular in Barcelona, for instance, and it'll just start playing. So I'll go describe that real quick. Play what's popular in Barcelona.
Absolutely. Playing today's popular songs in Barcelona.
Anybody knows what this song is? No idea. So you get the idea. This is another one where does it happen? Does it ever? A lot of it is just observing customers, including yourself. If you are the customer, it's you can go party because Yeah, so this is an interesting scenario where, hey, you're playing, you're playing something that you liked. You don't know how to get back to it. You just ask, hey, play something that I was playing last night, last month. Play that playlist I was playing at that party, or play that station I was playing at certain things. So it's very easy to do this. So the key here is you know exactly that you want to listen to the song that you played last night or last month, and in a visual app, you are neither going to ask for it, nor are you going to be able to find it. So play that playlist I was playing last week.
Here is a playlist from the time you requested. Electronic scores for Focus from Amazon Music.
Yeah, I had no idea. Yes, I did play that. You can do all sorts of things with this. With when you exactly know about a certain music, but you don't know how to describe it by name. The most common one, is, and this is probably because I grew up listening to Bollywood songs, or I just I have an affinity towards songs with certain catchphrases and so on. Where does anybody know a singer called Sia? So Sia has this song that keeps on going 1, 2, 3, drink, 1, 2, 3, drink. So I just thought that the song was called 1, 2, 3, drink. Because she keeps on repeating that over and over again. So I'd say, hey, Alexa, play that song that goes 1, 2, 3, drink. And she'll be like, "Budum," she won't know what to do. So I thought, hey, what's happening? And then I went through all the types of failed requests where customers were asking for interesting things, and just customers thought that they were asking for a song, and they were very specific. They were very specific in constructing the query, but Alexa would just not answer. I'm like, it's plain English. Why is she not answering? What happened was customers didn't know the name of the song. They just represented. They found out. They thought that the song was called something else. Oftentimes an anchor phrase or a catchphrase that keeps on repeating in the song. So there's this song called Chandelier. Play the song that goes 1, 2, 3, drink.
Chandelier by Sia.
I had no idea it was called Chandelier until we built this. What's even funnier is there are some lyrics where not only do they not know the name of the song, they don't know the actual lyrics. They just interpret the lyrics. So I'll give you an example that's very common. Play the song that goes Starbucks Lovers by Taylor Swift.
That's a tough one.
All right,
I couldn't
let me
find
try.
a song with the lyrics Starbucks Lovers.
All right. Play the song that goes I Have a Long List of Starbucks Lovers by Taylor Swift.
Blank Space
All right.
by Taylor Swift.
So she has this song, very famous. Anybody? Taylor Swift. The song goes I have a long list of ex-lovers. But most people know this song as Starbucks Lovers. And I'm like, why are people asking for this song, and why is Alexa not getting? I didn't know about this particular song. I didn't know that people recognize this song as Starbucks Lovers. So we have to anticipate what customers are trying to get to. As product builders, we have to anticipate what customers are trying to get to, and just get ahead of the customers. Just as long as you get just one step ahead of the customers, you'll wow the customers. And this is resonating really well with the customers in a global way. We ran a large advertising campaign across the world. I think this is Piccadilly Circus in London. They're all lyrics of songs. Play the song that has "We Can Be Heroes." This is New York Times, I think Times Square, and so on. Let's do a few questions. Let's start there.
So in the examples you provided, it seems like you must be looking at data around what people are asking. And how much is that a part of your product management process? And how do you make that part of your cycle for development?
The questions are how much of looking at data part of the product's management cycle. I'd expand the question if I could take the liberty of expanding the question a little more. I'm not deflecting, I'll just expand the question. Look at, if you were to use an army or a military analogy, we call them listening posts. And listening posts come in multiple forms. One is looking at the actual usage data if the product is out there. Oftentimes product is not out there in the market, so you don't have a lot of data. So usage data, usability studies, observing customers, is another one. Macro trends in the industry. Voice is a macro trend, at least in the industry I'm working on. Streaming versus purchase is another macro trend. Competitive benchmarking. Competitive benchmarking is not to obsess over competitors, but to really understand as to what expectations have been set for your customers by the next best alternative or by the competitor. And we also look at specific inbound customer feedback, so that's type of data. So it's not just metrics. We create a matrix of multiple listening posts, 5 or 6 types of listening posts. Voice of the customer is one of them. Look at inbound feedback through customer support channel, unsolicited, unaided feedback through social media and so on. Look at, do several types of customer surveys, whether it's to understand the brand, unaided brand awareness, or to understand what customer sentiment is on social media about our product and so on. So it's not just data. It's what portion of a product manager's time goes into it or so on, if that was another way to interpret the question. It depends on the stage of the product cycle. In the beginning of the product cycle, there's a lot more listening, diversity of thought. When we are about to ship something, we kind of close down the diversity of thought and focus on getting things shipped. Does that make sense? All right. Yeah, the question here? Yeah.
So very similar to his question, but more focused on what tools you use. I know there is NLP and natural language processing and everything going on in this space, but what tools do you use to, because you have 10 different sources of data, how do you use that data?
I think tools, there are no special tools we use. Tools we use are just to access the data. I think once we have the data or the information, and data is a very broad term. Once we have the information, it boils down to judgment and ICE or some process like that to figure out the prioritization or precedence order. But it's mainly judgment at that point. That's if it could be done by tools, then robots will be creating products, right? So.
You mentioned a few slides ago,
Yeah.
that a few years ago, Amazon Fire and Eco was released together. Fire was not such a success as Eco. Looking back, is there enough data to tell what went wrong and what Amazon could have done differently?
Fire phone, you mean? Yeah. So Fire TV is quite successful. Fire phone, the question was, Fire phone was not successful. Have we learned something? I unfortunately did not work on it directly, so I don't have. I'm not deflecting. I just don't have the data. I'm sure it was a very calculated decision. It's very smart people working on it, but I don't have insight into that. Yes.
How collaborative is the prioritization process for features? Is it a decision by yourself? Is it a decision by a board? How does it happen?
The different teams take a different approach. I think again, collaboration or the decision-making authority, accountability, all those things are merely tools. If there's a decision on a certain type of feature on the night before shipping, I'd say it's the decision of the person who knows the most about it. If we need to make a decision 6 months before shipping something and we're trying to get data and type of decision, we'll actually get decisions from multiple people. I'd caution that product design, product development, I found that democratic approach has not worked overall. So I'll just leave it at that. So it's not necessarily because you have to take a stance, because in absence of data, in particular, you need to take a stance. You need to take a risk, product risk in this case, and risk is essentially a currency, right? So if you have 100 points of risk to spend, where do you, as a product builder, where do you want to spend that risk capital? And you want to spend, say, 20 points of risk on the visual design and 5 points of risk on something else and so on. So does that give you some thinking points?
Follow-up question is, how risky is a product manager's job?
How risky is
you can go down one path and fall back with competition.
Yeah,
or
I think
you might strike it well.
Yeah, it's a numbers game oftentimes, and the high order bit is to ensure that you keep the cost of experimentation low, so you can do more and more experiments. So risk is up to you to manage as a PM. Let's get somebody else. Go ahead.
So I guess you already have a lot of data that you can collect from, but when you're trying to get out and observe people, when do you feel the need? Like when do you decide you need to go out and ask the customers?
I think it's an
What is
ongoing
the cadence?
process.
Oh.
Ongoing process. On an ongoing process, we have a set of customers that we work with to monitor and so on. There are multiple ways. There are all kinds of apps you can use to do that. But just to observe customers, music is one of those things. It's a human scale problem or human scale opportunity. Everyone pretty much in the world kind of uses music in one way or the other and can relate to it. So we have to launch. And Amazon Music's in 50 countries. So what might work in Mumbai may not work in Paris, for instance.
Let's say if it's like a month, like how many customers do you actually?
So how many customers do you? It's once you start forming trends. It's not a pure number, but once you start seeing patterns and trends, and the major trends emerge very quickly. I've never been in a usability study where I've seen that it was inconclusive. It's pretty obvious.
Okay.
Let's do one question here.
So as a follow-on to that question, how do you differentiate the number of customers or the amount of feedback you take for something like a consumer product versus, say, a B2B product where you may only have a couple hundred customers?
Yeah, I think B2B, the question is how do you inform decisions? How does the process of informing decision vary between consumer and enterprise product? I think consumer scale matters. Can afford to have scales, as you pointed out. In enterprise, depth often matters, and very intentionally going after those existing customers. So those 200 customers, the good part about that is you know exactly who those are and you have access to them. Compared to consumer, you have tens of millions of customers across a broad variety. So it's very hard to pinpoint one or two. So you'll go deep with a few customers, but you can still get to patterns very quickly. I think talk to 20 people. 20 different. I've worked on enterprise products as well, and I've seen that patterns they quickly emerge. Go ahead.
How do you balance putting competitor products into Echo? So Spotify is an example versus Amazon Music. One thing I've noticed, heavy Echo user.
Thank you.
And Echo plays Spotify more because I listen to Spotify. When I ask for music.
Yeah, I think it's like which app do you put on your phone? Like that you can say, can link your Spotify account, and if you ask to play from Spotify, it's customer driven. It's not something Amazon makes a decision on. So if you've linked,
so you don't care. You're just.
No, we care. I'd rather have you play Amazon Music. Like I care as a person responsible for some of the product decisions there. But that's the decision customer takes. So in this case, I'm sure you've linked your Spotify account to Echo, so it's a customer decision. All right, let's start here.
So on patterns, how do you distinguish between patterns that are emerging because a customer is in a repetitive rut versus a pattern because they're pleased with what you're delivering?
I think the intent is the high order bit there. So it's okay if customer likes to do something and customer likes to play Blank Space by Taylor Swift, and the way she wants to ask about it is by lyrics. It's fine. I think sometimes it's less about routine or rut versus one-time thing. It's more about have we solved the customer's deepest intent?
That's my question is the customer doing the same thing because they figured out one way to do it, and rather than explore more and find what they really wanted, they just play the same thing over because they don't have time to figure out the right way?
There are instances when bugs become features because of familiarity. Where customers say, hey, this is how I know to do it, so I'm going to do it that way. But you get to if a customer, say in this case, is playing the same song over and over again, instead of we can actually ask a customer, say, hey, how would you ask for this song in a different way? And then you'll realize that, hey, play something that I just played. Play what I just recently played, and it'll play. So let's just try this. Let's say play recently played songs.
Here are your recently played songs from Amazon Music.
Not sure what song is this. It's the blank space, right? So, so just anticipate, how at a large scale, how many customers are asking for it, how many different ways they're asking for it. Are they saying play the song that goes, or play the song with the lyrics, or play long list of ex-lovers or Starbucks lovers? So it's that. So it's to really get to the, once you have enough confidence, and you'll never get 100% confidence, once you have enough confidence, directionally at least, to find out that the customer's real intent is to do this, that's when you get. Does that make sense? Easier said than done, trust me, yeah. It's easier said than done, but you need to have conviction yourself. Go ahead.
So I have two questions. So my first one is, each time you have a release or a feature, do you all do it like a general availability each time, or is there a standard process where you're doing it iteratively, smaller group to larger group, tweak it and so on? And then the other one is, in terms of Alexa and, Spotify, what have you, in Amazon Music, there's also demographically, as the country changes, and teens use like maybe more of Spotify and other ones. How do you manage that in terms of, okay, that these two large demographics in the country, baby boomers and the millennials, one is Amazon Music and the other is Spotify, and how are you managing that sort of competition, or the changing habits of who your ultimate customer might be as well?
So first question was, do we test before we launch, or do we do a big bang release, or do we launch it iteratively? To the extent possible, we launch it iteratively. Even most of the features, we launch it in a controlled environment with a certain percentage of user base and see how it does. Prior to launching it, we run extensive tests internally, dogfooding and beta and so on, to the extent possible. There are some cases where you cannot launch certain types of products in a controlled manner, although we try doing that as much as possible. So it's always preferred, once you have the option value, it's about option value, right? So once you have the option value to quickly get the beat of the customer or the reaction of the customer, I'd definitely optimize for doing it iteratively. Second question was, hey, is there a brand affinity of younger demographics towards one brand versus older demographics towards the other? I'd say no. I'm sure there are in all kinds of products. In music, we've not seen that. Spotify is a great product. I respect a lot of people who work there. A lot of them are friends, and it's a good product. Amazon Music is a great product as well. I'd say I'm biased, obviously. Our approach has been to enter the market to create a voice-first service. You know how 7-8 years ago, there were these mobile-first or mobile-only companies. I think we have realized that there is enough of an opportunity for music to create a voice first. Now, if you look at the Amazon Music iPhone app or Android app, Alexa, it comes with Alexa in it, so you can just ask while driving. You can ask Alexa to do those things. So, and we think there's a space for that. It's less about demographic and so on. I would say for Prime Music, because it comes with your Prime membership. Prime Music does cater closely to the demographic of Amazon Prime. It's by design, because it's available only with Prime. So, but that's a choice we've made to offer that service. But for a market as large, or a product as universally applicable, I've seen that it doesn't apply, because we have. I'll just give you examples. We have a family plan. A teenager who's going to college. If her dad is paying for a no ads, all music available as part of the Amazon Music family plan, then it's more likely, he or she is more likely to just use that. Just because otherwise you'll have to listen to ads or pay extra. Here, dad's already, you're part of the family plan. There are so many of those customers. For instance, there's a student plan. We are the only ones who have a $3.99 a month plan. That's a voice only. So you buy an Echo, you buy Echo Dot, and there's a plan that just works on that. So there are different demographics that use or access music in a different way. So it's more nuanced than just older demographic and younger demographic. This makes sense. Customer perception may be different, obviously. we can't afford not to. Yes, let's do one question in the back. Go ahead, yeah.
I had a question around...
There's a mic coming out.
I had a question around the rice ice concept that you were talking about earlier, and you said, product development doesn't happen in a democracy. So when you have competing rices or ices, how is that decision made, and who makes that decision?
I think varies from team to team, but the product manager of that feature or that program, we let them decide, or the team collectively decides. It varies. Typically, it's the function of if rice or ice done right, you get a weighted average and a prioritized list if done right. I think typically when you have multiple items with the same score, it means that you've not done it in the most optimal way. If that makes sense. All right, there's a question here. Yeah.
Let's let this be the last question. Let's let Ken get through his slides. We'll definitely have time for Q&A at the end, guys. It's awesome that people have questions. Go ahead, do it. No, go ahead. Last ones too.
Okay, so as a UX designer, having access to raw data and a lot of different kinds of data about customers and where they're failing, where they're successful, competition, things like that, is really, really critical to help us have the insights, that help us be innovative and create awesome new products. So it sounds like, pardon me, it sounds like you guys, you're in particular very good at collecting a great diversity of data and also monitoring it pretty religiously all the time, which is pretty awesome. But how do you share that with your UX partners, especially?
Part of the same team. Can I say, yeah.
Almost no project I've ever worked on has had that kind of data sharing between product management and UX teams, so that's why I asked.
Kintan at Amazon.com will get you a job. No, we share it. It's data access, transparency, and making it available. I think it's you're leaving money on the table if you're not sharing with your engineers or developers or marketing folks and so on. So I think I've not seen that to be the problems in the teams I've worked with. So. All right, let's go to this one. The second, so content products, one scenario, one use case is I know exactly what I want to play. I'll search for it. The nuance for voice is that people manifest that intent or desire in a very nuanced way, unexpected way. We looked at the lyrics search as an example and so on. The second one is, hey, I don't know what I want to play. What we have observed, this insight came while I was dating and even after getting married to my wife, where every time we'll decide, hey, where do you want to go eat outside? So I don't know. I say, okay, let's go to this restaurant. It's like, yeah, not that one. Maybe not that one, something else. Say, oh, maybe go to this other restaurant. No, we've just had it. So the insight there was that, hey, even if a customer does not know exactly what they want, they can give you some guidance. They can give you some hints. When we parlay that into music, the hints tend to be, or the guidance tends to be in form of activities, genre, era, city, as I mentioned, like, hey, I don't know what I want to play, but maybe play what's trending in my hometown. Or play something that was popular when I was in college. So we actually, these are real data, where customers actually in scenarios when they don't know what to play, they'll actually give hints, and hints come in all kinds of forms. So it was very easy for us to do, in addition to just basic things like, hey, there's this big button I'll press, music comes out and I enjoy it. We do that, which is, Alexa, play music.
Here's a station you might like, Future Primitive, from Amazon Music.
So this is a recommended station for me based on all kinds of things I might have listened. So this is very simple. Hey, recommend me something, surprise me. It's like I'm feeling lucky, So that works, and we need to constantly improve that. But you can also say a lot of folks on our team actually went to school in the early 90s in Seattle. So play top songs by Pearl Jam from 1991 to 1994.
Playing the top songs by Pearl Jam from 1991 to 1994.
This is from Black, I think. So you get the idea. I'll say, hey, this is what was famous when during their formative years when it came to music. So they'll say, hey, play songs by this artist from this era or so on. customers would say, play some upbeat music.
Here's a playlist for upbeat music. Musicals for your workout from Amazon Music.
All right. You get the idea, tempo, mood, activities. But a lot of customers are very specific about what they don't know. They don't know exactly what they want, but they still have very specific guidance. So they'll mismatch and use like one of a few million permutations. This is one of my favorites. Play happy funk music from the 70s.
Playing happy funk 70s music.
That's funk enough. So this was it was so easy for the customer to get, and this is not something I made up. Customers actually ask for these kind of things. Play in India, there are Bollywood songs. Play rainy songs with Amitabh Bachchan. That's a very common thing. The thing here is to not require the customer to think what they want, translate what the machine or the app or Echo or Alexa may understand, and then just whatever comes to their mind, if they can speak it out and Alexa returns with music they like, that's what creates magical experience. That's customer obsession manifested through invention. So we are inventing ways in which customers discover music, customers play music, and so on. Let's go through a couple more examples. This is a very common one where, what do you want to play? I don't know, play something I haven't heard in a while. Very common. Play something I haven't heard in a while.
Playing songs you haven't heard in a while from Amazon Music.
I don't know where it's going to go. What song is this? What song is this?
This is 12 Etudes, Opus 10, number 3 in E major. Lento ma non troppo, from most relaxing piano album in the world, ever, by John Oddman.
It's a great title, but it's classical. So you get the idea. Let's go through a few examples and we'll do questions on this. Unless you have a very burning question.
Every question I have is burning.
All right, let's go for it. What is it?
I'm curious to know kind of what the difference is.
What are the barriers for doing no UI versus actually designing for a UI?
It's a different ballgame, man. The question of how do you design? First, how do you hire for people? How do you hire people who can write good copy? You hire script writers, screenwriters, or you hire designers, you hire linguists. It really comes down to you hire good product thinkers, and then they'll figure it out. Good product thinkers who are fast learners. And the way we do it is we chart it out. We write down everything. And there's like complex flow charts to figure out, hey, if a customer asks this, what will we do? Do lots of machine learning, deep learning actually to be specific. So I said happy funk music from the 70s. There are 3 attributes. Happy is a mood, funk is a genre, and 70s is an era. So there are all 3 metadata. Now, happy, when the label sends us songs, there isn't a field that says, hey, these are happy songs. And there are like 50 million plus songs worldwide. And how do you know a happy song here versus happy song in Bollywood or in Russia or so on? So we create deep learning models that uses the training data that classifies songs as happy or sad or upbeat or melancholic, and then run it through the entire set of songs, and then retag those songs automatically based on genres and so on. Then we take synonyms. So we'll say happy and figure out all different ways in which customers may ask for happy. Happy, joyous, joyful, ebullient, and then tag those things. So the goal is to really anticipate whatever a customer may throw at it, it should just return. So it's hard, it's a different ballgame, it's an evolving science and craft, but it's super exciting because when you do these tests for the first time, we ask, go sit with a customer and say, ask whatever you want to ask, and Alexa returns it. The joy you see in the customer's eyes is like nothing I've seen before in other customer studies. Let's do a few more. We did this. Activities is another one. Somebody picked this up. Cosmopolitan picked it up when we launched Activities, and then that went super viral. But you can imagine Any kind of activity. There are 400-500 activities that you can ask for right now. Simple things like play music for cooking.
Here's a playlist for cooking music, Cocina Latina, from Amazon Music.
Cocina Latina. That's probably because I've been listening to a lot of Despacito. So it actually picks a genre based on some of my recent listening history and so on. So you get the idea. The high order bit here is the same intent, the same scenario that customers have been manifesting in a visual app or in your own app before. How do you reimagine it? How do you figure out what aspects of the customer need are not yet satisfied? Where is the friction point? And you get ahead of it. Does that make sense? How do I apply this to my product? Obviously, you want to map it to existing human behavior, but for you to be able to map it, you need to first know what the existing human behavior is. So closely, keenly observe the customers. Second is what counterintuitive patterns are you seeing? I'll give you one quick example on counterintuitive patterns. Everyone knows Madonna, U2, very famous artists, 30 years of discography. U2 launched a new album not too long ago. So when customers asked, hey, play U2, we'll play the latest song from U2, because we think customers like to hear latest songs. And we saw that customers will skip that song right away. Like, why is everyone skipping this song? It's not that it was a bad song, but we found out that some hardcore fans of U2, they only love U2 from the 80s. So we made it easy for customers to find U2 from the 80s. So you can say play U2 or play U2 from this. And then we're in the Bay Area, so some customers are even pickier than you would imagine. How many of you know Van Halen? So Van Halen, the lead singer changed so many times. So the queries would come, play Van Halen, but only with David Lee Roth. Or play Van Halen, but only with Sammy Yeager. So you need to just anticipate what might come and how to address them. So the counterintuitive pattern here was that just playing U2 is not sufficient. Understand, really observe what's happening with the customer behavior, and then make it easy for the customer to ask for something. Let's do one question. 2 questions. I saw 2 hands.
Now, is that counterintuitive behavior something that you recognize after customer interviews? Because data won't tell you that, right?
Data will tell you. You see, hey, I asked, in U2's case, I asked for a song. Customer asked for a U2 song. I played the most recent song by U2. Customer skipped right away. That's data.
Right.
So it tells you.
But why?
Oh, then you say what? Then the customer will say, play Beautiful Day. And say, what is the customer doing after that? So then you find out. Another question here, somewhere here. Was there a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious. So there's the Echo integration. There's a mobile app. There's a browser. How do you divvy up the resources? Are you spending having most of the team work on the Echo integration?
No, I think you have more people, and you just take a smarter approach of dividing. Because it's the same customer uses multiple apps, right? The same customer at home might be listening to the same music on Echo, and then they're driving, they may be listening to it on their phone or at desktop. So we cannot have a poor experience for that same customer at different time of the day. So we have to invest in all of them.
By the way, I recently discovered the Amazon original music. So nice job. I don't know if you're behind that, but that was awesome.
Yeah, my teams were behind it, but it's fun. It's fun to interact with artists in a different way. So, all right. So I think this was I've done some of these talks before with in other forums and so on. And one of the most common questions I was asked was that, hey, we hear about Amazon's working backwards process. There is a press release and an FAQ and so on. So I thought, why not use an actual FAQ, actual press release that I've been part of, show the product and just walk you through it really quick. We'll spend about 3-4 minutes on it, but hopefully they'll give you a flavor. How many of you are familiar with the working backwards press release? So really quickly, let me actually give you more context. So if you go to the iTunes App Store or the Google Play App Store or so on, and you list all the apps based on in ascending order. So you start with the apps that were the lowest ratings were 1-star rating, and 1,000 reviews, 1-star rating, something like that. And then you go and ask those developers or the teams behind those apps that, hey, what was your intent? What did you start out to build? None of them will tell you that, no, our intention was to build a one-star app, build as bad a product as possible. So nobody wants to build bad products, but there are so many bad products out there. And the reason is that good intentions are not sufficient. Good intentions don't always work. Good mechanisms work. And mechanisms are essentially processes, tools, getting them adopted, and good audit processes. So ways to inspect whether certain things are happening the right way or not. A mechanism that has worked out for Amazon is this working backwards approach. Working backwards is essentially straightforward, where before a single line of code is written, with the teams that are building it will actually start with a customer-facing or a mock press release, but that's written as if it's going to be read by the customers and press members and so on. They augment that with frequently asked questions by a customer or somebody outside, frequently asked questions from internal folks, stakeholders, and so on. And then they add some visuals, whether you use Balsamic or you use just pen and paper, but some visuals to help. These are very early visuals, low fidelity mocks to help you visualize what the idea is, a flow chart. If in this case, if we have tools where we'll do some audio clips of Alexa in Alexa's voice, so we can understand what we are trying to do, and we'll walk through this in an example. So to give some context, this is what my music collection looked like: a few vinyls, a lot of CDs in the late 90s, early 2000s, and so on. I'm a big music fan, movies and music fan, but movies and music in India are the same industry, the same customers, same people. So in early 2000s and mid 2000s and so on, beyond a certain point, I don't know when that started, but maybe right after when iPod came around, I guess. The first thing I did after buying a CD was to rip it. Straightforward. The first thing I did was, and then fortunately, a lot of customers were using Amazon, were going to Amazon to buy their CDs. So we'll ask customers, hey, how's it going? What are you doing with the CDs? And say, yeah, we rip it. Just got to rip it, man, just to make sure that I can take that music with me at the gym and so on. So that, hey, if almost every customer is doing this, why don't we reduce friction and eliminate that step for them? So we came up with this thing we like to call auto rip. Which is essentially, if you bought a CD, if you buy a CD, before the CD arrives in mail, the digital version of that song is automatically added to your Amazon Music library. There's no extra cost, it's just there. Because everyone's going to do that anyways, why not do it for the customers? Easier said than done. Guess how the conversations went with the music labels when we went, hey, you know what, there's a chance that these customers might actually buy 2 versions of the same song. We don't want them to do that. It was very sharp and very tenacious licensing teams at Amazon did that for the customers, and customers loved it. So one fine day, early, I think January 2013, customers opened their app. This is a screenshot from the browser, music.amazon.com, and they say, voila, you have 160 songs waiting for you. Voila, you have 5,000 songs. And this is one of those products that unequivocally, every customer, almost all customers have just loved it, and they continue to love it. This is 5 years to the date, actually, 5 years and 2 months to date. And you still search for auto rape on Twitter, and you still find good positive responses and so on. Artists love it. This is just the right thing to do. It's just the right thing to do as a product builder. We'll get customer complaints, some customers, but the complaints would be of a very unique nature. Say, how dare Amazon pollute my library with Nickelback? Like, you bought it, man. You bought it 10 years ago. You may not like Nickelback now, but you bought it. It's not, I didn't decide Nickelback for you. You bought it. So the complaints will be of that nature, not about the feature. Let's walk through, and then this helps because we create customers' music collections right there, so we can use that for recommendations. This is a screenshot of our stations, so we use that data to inform what stations to play for the customers and so on. So it actually helps on an ongoing basis. So this is a mock press release. This is not the final one, but these press releases go through multiple iterations and versions. I've highlighted a few sections intentionally. This is what was written about a year or so before it was launched. This was probably written in 2012 sometime. We didn't even know when we were going to launch. That's why the date is date, not an actual date, but DAT date. See that we have written, say, customers can start enjoying their music in real time without waiting for CDs to arrive. Provides an additional benefit by automatically placing MP3 tracks in the library. This is one of those customer tweets from not too long ago. The Wall Street Journal article, when it came out, was it actually picked some of the things that the product manager for that had written a year or two ago before the product was actually launched. But the team working on it had visualized how this would be built, how we want the press and the customers to perceive this feature. TechCrunch also had a similar one. And these are, we didn't give them, we gave a press release, but they make up their own language and so on. But they found out that there was clarity of thought in what the intended customer benefit was and how the customers and press perceived it. Frequently asked questions is obviously, you want to look at all the stakeholders, first customers as well as press, but also internal stakeholders. Keep on adding more FAQs. Obviously, you want to focus on the who, what, why now, how, when, and so on. Questions in auto review, hey, what are we going to do about licensing? What's the financial impact of it? Can we really build it? Does it work on just desktop or does it also work on mobile? So on and so forth. Just give an example. This was one of the mocks, it's not quite a napkin, but very close that, hey, if this is, the left-hand side is how your Amazon Music app would look like, and the right-hand side is what the detail page. So detail page is the page on Amazon.com when you search for that CD. It'll actually have a new badge or new item called, new label called auto-rip. That's how customers will react. They don't need to do anything different. There's zero friction for customers. They'll do exactly what they were doing before. It'll just automatically work. It's important, it works because if you've written 6 pages or 10 pages worth of text and spend time in iterating that doc, it'll be very hard for you to not have clarity of thought. And writing enforces clarity of thought, and that's why it works. It's harder than it seems, but it's easier than writing code. Or it's easier than writing code that for a product that does not work. It's okay to shred the press release, shred the Word doc or the Quip doc or so on, as opposed to actually doing work. So that's a sneak peek of working backwards. How can I apply? So for auto-rip, what high bar customer promise are we making? It's a very high bar promise. This is not only the songs that you purchase now, but it was also other CDs that you had purchased in the past. So there was a very high bar promise. Do you really know the customer's intent? Now this becomes very important again. The customer's intent in buying a CD was to actually listen to the song and take it to them, take it with them to the gym or so on their MP3 player or so on. So fulfill the customer's intent. And write down the ideas, write down the proposal in a customer tone, in a customer-centric way. That's all I had in prepared remarks. Leave you with a quote from Jeff, one of my favorite quotes. So when you reduce friction, a lot of these things, customers were not asking for it, but when you reduce friction, make something easier, customers do more of it. As simple as that. Thank you so much for your time. If there are questions, I'll be more than happy to share my perspectives. I don't know until what time this goes.
Yeah, so the last one, everybody has questions. So just raise your hand, and if you don't have a mic, don't ask the questions. Raise your hand. We have 2 mics to run around, okay? Mike is running one of the mics.
It's closer to the mic. Let's just, yeah. I'll let folks with the mic to decide whom to pick. So
So do you have a A/B testing platform built into Alexa, and what is the scale of that? Like how many do you have running?
I think to abstract the question out, do we do A/B testing on new features in Alexa? Yeah, we do. We say, hey, play music. One customer gets one thing, another customer gets another, and we'll see what happens.
And what's the scale of it? Like how many do you think are you continuously running?
How many experiments can be run? Or scale is large. I don't know the exact count, but it's fairly large. I mean, it's a global scale product, and the same experiment can be running on more than one client it's not more than one platform. So not just Alexa, but also on your iPhone, also on your desktop app and mobile. Yeah, I don't have a number as how many hundreds is it, but it's fairly large. Makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, many a times you can like manipulate data to confirm your hypothesis as a product manager. Like, you know, like how do you get rid of that product manager bias when deciding features for a particular product?
You manipulate the data?
You can
Why would you manipulate the data?
manipulate in a sense like you can make the data say what you want it to say. Many a times
Just
that
don't do
does
it.
happen. Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, no, so like, why would?
I'm saying like there can be two conflicting product features where either you want to implement A or B, and you can see a higher user acceptance in both of those features. So how do you decide between contradicting product features?
Yeah, I'd just say, like, first and foremost, if you are the decision maker, then I'll just make sure that you are true to yourself, and, you know, just be very true, even if it means throwing away, you know, months of code, months of work. Just be true to yourself. Like, maybe you didn't mean this, but I won't manipulate data, because then defeats the purpose. Now, when there are two data points that are contradicting, say there are customers who are, customers also want lyric search, but customers also want lyric search, and they also want this other feature, play what's popular in a city, and that, say 100 customers want both of them. Which one to pick? I'll use something like ICE or so on to figure out, hey, where do you think strategically this can be a long-term competitive advantage for you, and so on, where lyrics, for instance, is one of those competitive advantages for Amazon Music, so we have been investing on that quite a bit. Does that make sense, or maybe I misunderstood the question?
It was close to what I was saying, like, considering the fact that sometimes, like, people want data security, but they also want great recommendations, and, you know, they're like contradicting policy points on which you need to base your product features. So I was like, how do you?
So I'll use the. I'll not base. I think the high order bit there is I won't base the decision on a single axis. It's like a three-dimensional chess, you know, from Star Trek, where you wanna look at it, take a weighted average across multiple vectors. That's what I would do, if that happens.
Yeah, got it. Thanks.
Easier said than done. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you for the presentation. So would you elaborate a bit more on the press release process? How widely that's distributed, and who gets to read them, and who drafts them, and then what are some of the actors around this process?
Yeah, so it's a very commonly used approach. That's how Amazon builds products and does things. So it's across Amazon. It's very commonly distributed and so on. So within the teams, the product manager or the main person who's accountable for it, could be a dev manager or a designer, so on, would write it. And every stakeholder will participate in it, whether in the pod, whether it's a designer or a developer or an engineer or a marketing person, depending on their role. And they'll iterate over it, depending on the complexity and scope of the project. They'll iterate through it over a couple of weeks or so, typically. And then it gets distributed to the right stakeholders.
But you actually compare the final press release with the original?
Yeah, when it matches with what actually came out, I compare. Otherwise, I just throw it away. No, it's good to compare, just to see how good it's just hindsight. There's no value in comparing besides boasting rights. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter which function group, the developers, the UIs, and everybody involved is reading this.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you guys use any of the jobs to be done framework. I couldn't avoid reading your presentation with those lens, like listening to music as a job stable, the products, but kind of in a more in the process.
Yeah, a subset of my team uses that. Jobs to be done is a good one. Intent is essentially just one layer abstracted out of it. Jobs to be done has some risks where you want to look at it. Dan talks a lot about problem space versus solution space. I've seen folks, if they don't use jobs to be done in the right way, they steer closely to the solution space, which is dangerous at times. So
I'm thinking more outcome-driven innovation. I'm thinking more
outcome versus output and so on.
Yeah.
But I focus more on the problem space as opposed to solutions. Hence the intent versus which job, because sometimes what job will fulfill a certain intent is maybe based on somebody's weak assumptions, or assumptions that were true based on yesterday's data, but that data has changed, so it may not be true today. Because jobs to be done could be, hey, jobs to be done is download songs.
No, it's listening to music, and that has been stable over time. That we listen to music like in the 20s. Now my parents is not demographic, and so I'm curious. I'm a fan, and so I just
No, I think it's done right. Jobs to be done is a very powerful framework. What I've seen is folks who are new to using it.
Yeah.
I've seen people misuse it. That's what I'm cautioning against. Mike, where's the mic? All right. I'll follow the mic.
So I really liked how you conveyed your message through the use of frequently used phrases. So I mean, like phrases to Alexa, for instance, right? Like to the service. So I have a question. So my question is, in the way you work, how do you determine which of these phrases, are semantically equivalent, but at the same time are very highly frequently used by your users? I mean, if I were to think about it, number one, I would either hire a very creative person who could think about those semantic equivalences and just jot down these kind of copyrights, or B, I would maybe, as someone mentioned, I would actually go through all the data, try to figure out patterns, and then, detect anomalies or something like that. Or C, I'd actually have qualitative interviews. Which of these three methods do you rely on the most?
They're not mutually exclusive. We'll do all of it. Yeah. They don't need to be mutually exclusive. You hire smart people who can think ahead from a customer's perspective, who also look at the data when the data is available, and then they try to spot these patterns, as you mentioned. So I think do all of it.
Yeah, but I would have thought about the quantitative aspect, but then I thought, you also need extremely well-labeled data. When you talked about deep learning, for instance, right? You need very well-labeled data, which is why I was wondering whether you rely more on the qualitative side of things or...
Yeah, so where we have data, we rely on data. Where we don't, then we have to obviously make some judgment calls, which are not always right. All right, go ahead.
So my question is, how would you define the Amazon's decision-making process in terms of product management, other than
customer-centric and data-centric?
What's that?
It's a customer-centric and a data-centric approach to informing decisions. I mean, that's the real truth. No marketing speak or so on. As customer-centric as possible, as data-centric as possible.
But wouldn't that be other companies doing the same thing also?
Yeah, but we can't control what other companies do, right? What we control is what we do. I don't mean to be facetious. Does that answer? Like, just focus on the controllable factors, controllable inputs. Things that we control are, do we really know who our customers are? Do we know what they want, why they want it, why do they want it now? And then do we have data to either inform that decision or validate a hypothesis, and then do it? Does that make sense? Other companies will do, they are smart people everywhere, they'll do, but we just don't control, we can't stop others from doing some things. Just so we don't worry about it. Focus on things we control.
One question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kintan, you've talked a lot about some very rich context, right? Where a customer would say, I want Van Halen, but was this singer, and so on. So that's a very, I would say, sophisticated category of customers. Are you actually like working maybe on several profiles for, well, within your Alexa and Amazon Music, where the customer's interests are less sophisticated? For example, my primary user of Amazon Music in my family is my 3.5-year-old son. So his context is very limited to like children's songs. And for me, like, for example, what's missing, and there's constant friction, is where if the song name is just a little bit mispronounced, the Alexa doesn't know what it is. And for me, what would be like reduce friction, and Alexa probably, like, for me would be the case where it would recognize, okay, this is a child because of the previous history of songs that were played. Probably he wants one of those songs, and therefore if you recognize at least one word and you can match it with one of those songs, that's most likely what he wants.
Yeah.
So I've noticed as more sophisticated stuff plays, but more simple stuff is maybe something.
Yeah, it's a great feature. I think the there's a thing called voice profile. If you go to the Alexa app, seems like, then thank you for using Alexa, and I thank your son as well. There's a voice profile. You go to the Alexa app settings, and there you can actually train Alexa to your voice, and then somebody else in your family, and then depending on when you ask versus some other family member asks, it'll recommend the different music based on your voice profile.
Friction, have it automatically recognized, right?
You have to do it once. It's a one-time friction. Yeah, it's easy. Like, children are amazing. My most favorite just observation on children was, there was a child who would ask Alexa something and she won't answer. So they had multiple echoes in the home. So she'll go to the other room and ask the same question. Like, I know the heart was going to be broken. And then didn't answer, go to the other one and then try the same question over and over again. So it's a hard problem to solve, but it's a real problem.
All right, let's take one last question in recognition of the time, and then Kintan said he'll hang around. We'll give away some prizes, and he'll hang around and do Q&A afterwards. Okay, so last question, here we go.
Mimi, hi. So you talked a little about user center and data center approach, and I was wondering, how does that work as a team? Like, someone asked here about the design team and the product team and the engineer. So how is the internal process working, and not only in terms of the decision making, but in general?
I think various teams work differently. I think we in music we take an approach of inclusion, but we try to stay away from biases as much as possible. But it's not perfect. It's case by case based.
Can you tell a little about how many people are in the team and how does that work together?
The teams are fairly large. They are distributed. Teams are fairly large and they are distributed. It's we assign certain single-threaded owners for a specific feature or a program, and across various disciplines. So there'll be a designer, a product manager, an engineering lead, and so on, or a go-to-market person. They'll be associated with a certain feature. So there is continuity amongst them. It's a diverse team based on the skills needed. Data analyst, the ML, data scientist, depending on the feature, they'll be involved and so on.
All right. Please
Last
join
question.
me giving Kintan, no, we have to do it later. Kintan,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me
Thanks
again.
a lot, Kintan. Yeah, and he'll be around to do questions. I can tell we have a